everyone, welcome to Story Time. This is the book that I'm reading from today. It is called Once Upon a Time Tales. It has all kinds of different stories in here. This is not a book from my childhood. I bought this one probably 5 or 6 years ago because I wanted a collection of stories that I remembered from my childhood, but I could no longer find those books, or they may not have survived those books. And or stories that I heard. This was actually originally copyright in 1926. So this is was printed in 95 though. So it's some older stories, and it's some a newer book, but older stories. And was one I've only had a few years, but there's some of the stories in here that I remember from my childhood. And this one I'm going to read to you today is called Henny Penny. Now, this is a very similar version of a story that I used to have a book of when I was little. It was one of my favorites called Chicken Little. I don't know if it's the exact same story. I think it's very similar, though. It's got the same characters, and there was a Chicken Little in that story, though, and I don't know if he's in this one, but this is called Henny Penny. And I think it's just, like I said, a different version of that story. I liked this story a lot, because when I was really little, I loved words that rhymed. I loved things that rhymed. This one has a lot of rhyming characters' names in here. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that I was very drawn to music. It's probably why I'm a singer and play the piano. I love music. Music does a lot for me. And music usually has a lot of rhymes. And rhyming words have a sing-song beat to them. It's sort of a musical thing. That's probably why I liked this. So, I'm going to read you the story today, if you have not heard it, of Henny Penny. One day, Henny Penny wandered into the woods to search for nuts that had fallen to the ground. And as she was going along, what should happen but bingo! A big acorn fell from a tree above her and hit her upon her poor bald head. "Cut, cut, cut, cut!" squawked poor Henny Penny. "Oh, goodness! Oh, gracious! The skies have fallen! Surely I must go and tell the king." And straightway Henny Penny set out to find the king and tell him that the sky was beginning to fall, for she thought he ought to know about it. So she hurried along and hurried along, and in a little while she met Cocky Locky. "Cock-a-doodle-doo!" called Cocky Locky. "Good morning to you, Henny Penny, and where are you going this fine day?" "Oh, dearie me, Cocky Locky," cried Henny Penny. "It isn't a good morning, and it isn't a fine day. I went into the woods to gather nuts, and a piece of the sky fell on my poor bald head, so I'm on my way to tell the king the skies have fallen." "Oh, what a dreadful thing! Cock-a-doodle-doo!" exclaimed Cocky Locky. "Do you mind if I come along with you?" "Not at all," said Henny Penny. "We'll both go and tell the king." So they hurried along and hurried along, Henny Penny and Cocky Locky, and as they hurried along, whom should they meet but Ducky Lucky? "Quack, quack, quack!" called Ducky Lucky. "Good morning to you, Henny Penny and Cocky Locky, and where are the two of you going this fine day?" "Oh, dearie me, Ducky Lucky," cried Cocky Locky. "It isn't a good morning, and it isn't a fine day. Henny Penny went into the woods to gather nuts, and a piece of the sky fell upon her poor bald head. So we're on our way to tell the king the skies are falling." "Oh, what a dreadful thing! Quack, quack!" exclaimed Ducky Lucky. "Do you mind if I come along with you?" "Not at all," said Cocky Locky. "All three of us will go and tell the king." So they hurried along and hurried along, Henny Penny, Cocky Locky, and Ducky Lucky. And as they hurried along, whom should they meet but Drakey Lakey? "Quack, quack, quack!" called Drakey Lakey, for he was a little hoarse as usual and couldn't give a real quack. "Good morning to you, Henny Penny and Cocky Locky and Ducky Lucky, and where are the three of you going this fine day?" "Oh, dearie me, Drakey Lakey," called Ducky Lucky. "It isn't a good morning, and it isn't a fine day. Henny Penny went into the woods to gather nuts, and a piece of the sky fell upon her poor bald head, so we're on our way to tell the king the skies are falling." "Oh, what a dreadful thing! Quack, quack!" exclaimed Drakey Lakey. "Do you mind if I come along with you?" "Not at all," said Ducky Lucky. "All four of us will tell the king." So they all hurried along and hurried along, Henny Penny, Cocky Locky, Ducky Lucky, Drakey Lakey. And as they hurried along, whom should they meet but Goosey Lucy? "Honk, honk, honk!" called out Goosey Lucy. "Good morning to you, Henny Penny and Cocky Locky and Ducky Lucky and Drakey Lakey. Where are the four of you going this fine day?" "Oh, dearie me, Goosey Lucy," cried Drakey Lakey. "It isn't a good morning, and it isn't a fine day. Henny Penny went into the woods to gather nuts, and a piece of the sky fell upon her poor bald head. So we're on our way to tell the king the skies are falling." Oh, what a dreadful thing! Honk, honk! Exclaimed Goosey Lucy. Do you mind if I come along with you? Not at all, said Drakey Lakey. All 5 of us will go and tell the king. So they hurried along and hurried along. Henny Penny, and Cocky Locky, and Ducky Lucky, and Drakey Lakey, and Goosey Lucy. And as they hurried along, whom should they meet but Ganderlander? Squawk, 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 called Ganderlander. Good morning to you, Henny Penny, and Cocky Locky, and Ducky Lucky, and Drakey Lakey, and Goosey Lucy. And where are the 5 of you going this fine day? Oh, dearie me, Ganderlander, cried Goosey Lucy. It isn't a good morning, and it isn't a fine day. Henny Penny went into the woods to gather nuts, and a piece of the sky fell upon her poor bald head. So we're on our way to tell the king the skies have fallen. Oh, what a dreadful thing! Squawk, squawk! Exclaimed Ganderlander. Do you mind if I come along with you? Not at all, said Goosey Lucy. All 6 of us will go and tell the king. Where do you think this is going? Let us see. So they all hurried along and hurried along, Henny Penny, and Cocky Locky, and Ducky Lucky, and Drakey Lakey, and Goosey Lucy, and Ganderlander. And as they hurried along, whom should they meet but Turkey Lurkey? Gobble, 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 called Turkey Lurkey, stretching out his long neck. Good morning to you, Henny Penny, and Cocky Locky, and Ducky Lucky, and Drakey Lakey, and Goosey Lucy, and Ganderlander. And where are the 6 of you going this fine day? Oh, dear me, Turkey Lurkey, cried Ganderlander. It isn't a good morning, and it isn't a fine day. Henny Penny went into the woods to gather nuts, and a piece of the sky fell upon her poor bald head. So we're on our way to tell the king the skies are falling. Oh, what a dreadful thing! Gobble, gobble, exclaimed Turkey Lurkey. Do you mind if I come along with you? Not at all, said Ganderlander. All 7 of us will go and tell the king. So they hurried along and hurried along, Henny Penny, and Cocky Locky, and Ducky Lucky, and Drakey Lakey, and Goosey Lucy, and Ganderlander, and Turkey Lurkey, all bound to tell the king the sky was falling. And as they hurried along, whom should they meet but Foxy Loxy. Good morning to you, my pretty friends, called Foxy Loxy, smiling slyly upon them all. And where are the 7 of you going in such a hurry this fine day? Oh, dearie me, Foxy Loxy, cried Turkey Lurkey. It isn't a good morning, and it isn't a fine day. Henny Penny went into the woods to gather nuts, and a piece of the sky fell upon her poor bald head. So we are on our way to tell the king the skies have fallen. Oh, what a dreadful thing, exclaimed Foxy Loxy, but he smiled, as though he thought it might not be such a dreadful thing after all. And was Henny Penny standing near the big oak tree at the edge of the woods, may I ask? That was just the place, cried Henny Penny. I thought so, said Foxy Loxy, smiling more broadly than ever. I was there yesterday, and I thought the sky looked rather weak there. The king should know about it by all means, but are you sure that you know the way to the king's palace? Turkey Lurkey looked at Ganderlander. Ganderlander looked at Goosey Lucy. Goosey Lucy looked at Drakey Lakey. Drakey Lakey looked at Ducky Lucky. And Ducky Lucky looked at Cocky Locky. And Cocky Locky looked at Henny Penny. And Henny Penny shook her head. Then I shall lead you to it, said Foxy Loxy. And he licked his lips hungry. I know the king well, and I can find his palace for you very easily. Just follow me. We'll all go and tell the king the skies have fallen. So Foxy Loxy led the way, and behind him followed Turkey Lurkey and Ganderlander and Goosey Lucy and Drakey Lakey and Ducky Lucky and Cocky Locky and Henny Penny, all going to tell the king the sky was falling. They hurried along, and presently they came to a big hole that went deep into a bank beneath the roots of a tree. Now this was really the door to Foxy Loxy's den. Foxy Loxy smiled and said, "This is a short way to the king's palace. I shall go in first, and you must follow me one at a time. Then very soon you will all be in the presence of the king to tell him the skies have fallen." Henny Penny and all her companions were very grateful to Foxy Loxy for showing them the way to the king's palace, and they promised to do just as he said. So Foxy Loxy smiled slyly and went into his burrow. There he waited, just around a turn at the far end, and as he waited for them to come to him, he thought of what a fine dinner Henny Penny and her friends would make for him. He was going to eat them. Henny Penny started toward the big hole in the bank. Then all at once she remembered something. "Oh, goodness gracious me," she cried, stopping short. "I have forgotten to lay my egg today. There are enough of you to go tell the king without me. I must be off at once." And away went Henny Penny as fast as she could go, straight toward her box in the barnyard. Cocky Locky started toward the big hole. Then just all at once he remembered something. "Dear, dear," he exclaimed, shaking his red comb. "Just think, there has been no crowing done in the barnyard for hours. There are enough of you to tell the king without me, so I shall get back to my work." And away he hurried also. Ducky Lucky and Drakey Lakey and Goosey Lucy and Gander Lander and Turkey Lurkey looked after him. And as they looked after him, they all began to think of things they should be doing instead of going to see the king. "Foxy Loxy knows the king, and the way to his palace," said Goosey Lucy. "Let him tell the king the skies are falling. I have my work to do, and I must get back to it at once." "So must we," said all the others, and so away they hurried, leaving Foxy Loxy himself to go and tell the king the sky was falling. Foxy Loxy, back in his dark den, waited hungrily for Henny Penny and her friends to come to him, and after he had waited a long, long time, he began to wonder what could have happened to them. So he left his den and went out to the mouth of his burrow to look for them. And then, wasn't he a surprised and angry Foxy Loxy? He found them gone, every one of them, Henny Penny and Cocky Locky and Ducky Lucky and Drakey Lakey and Goosey Lucy and Gander Lander and Turkey Lurkey. And thus it was that sly Foxy Loxy had to go without his fine dinner, and the king was never told the sky was falling. And that is the end. I hope you enjoyed the book Henny Penny, with all the rhyming names of all the characters, all the animals. And until tomorrow, when I will come read you another story, may you be good, may you have fun, find some good fun things to do in your house, and be good. Good night.